Welcome everybody. This is the SharePoint Community Call, September 2020 edition. It is September 8th, 2020. My name is Vesa Juvonen. I'm a Principal Program Manager from the OneDrive SharePoint platform team. In this call, in this monthly community call, even though I'm from the platform team, which is the extensibility, we do kind of a slightly concentrate on those things, but quite often the topic which we cover in these calls is not just about the extensibility, it's also about the features and capabilities, and then of course we'll also touch that, okay, so if you have a custom portal, how can you modify the custom portal and what are the advantages on that side. But on top of the monthly community call, we also have the bi-weekly or actually weekly community calls where we then deep dive on technology and have more detailed demos on technical stuff and extensibility if you're more a developer. Now, let's actually get moving on the slides. Now, today we're going to do a quick update on the SharePoint development, latest news, monthly summary, and other details. We're going to acknowledge the community contributors which have been active in our community site, not just about the development side and open source of code, but also around Microsoft 365 community docs. So people who've been actively contributing into documentation. Then after that one, we have a optional picture time. So if you're interested, you can get ready on this one already. So we can enable the video. If you enable the video, and I will take a screenshot out of the together mode. So let's try to do a new record on the people who are attending with the video enabled. So we can actually show that there's more than 100 people in the call. If you don't want to do that, no problems whatsoever. That's going to take 1 minute or 2 minutes to actually do. So let's try to do that, and let's see how many people we actually get. I think it's just a fun way of actually seeing the real people, not just the names on the call as well. And then we have the main topic of today. So we have Mike and Matt joining from Microsoft side. They will do their own introductions, but they're really specialists around the intelligent intranet and the digital experiences on that one and the solution enabler refresh. That sounds like a mouthful, but what it actually means is that they will go through what are the different solutions and assets and capabilities which are available for you to take advantage in the intelligent intranet experience. And obviously, intelligent intranet doesn't just mean SharePoint, it relates on Microsoft Teams, and all of this is getting gradually merged together because it just makes sense. It's not a competition. Let's actually take the best of the both worlds and combine that as the Uber communication and collaboration platform. Now, and in the end, most likely we will not have time for this one, but we always promise to have a Q&A, but typically we run out of time, and we do apologize on that one. Now, if there's any questions, please use the chat window. That's typically quite active on this course. So if you have a technical question, you can ask it in a chat, and there's typically people who will try to help you as much as they can. But then at the same time, because we have also more than 200 attendees already in the call, that means that even though you would raise your hand for a question, we cannot actually do that live in this course because there's so many people attending, so we cannot actually do that. So please use chat for any technical questions or questions in general. Now let's actually get moving on things. So quick recap on the assets of things and different kind of assets which are available for you in the open source and community side. So we have the Microsoft 365 developer videos, guidance videos and assets. We have the Microsoft 365 SharePoint community videos, where we also have non-development topics, so non-development areas and videos helping people to get started on things. We have the open source assets. So we have code, we have list and column formatting, which applies for Microsoft lists and also SharePoint lists. We have extensibility and samples available for Microsoft Teams. We have web parse extensions and all of that stuff, and many other assets available. If you're wondering that, hey, wait a minute, there's so many URLs here, this is so difficult. Luckily, there's only one URL to remember, which is the one on the right, which is AKMS M365 PnP, so Microsoft 365 Patterns and Practices. And from that page, you'll find links to all of these different assets and projects and open source tools and SDKs, which are available for you to take advantage. All of this exists, by the way, for your benefit. So if something is missing or we do a lousy job, please let us know. We want to improve. Or if you do a good job, you are more than welcome to also provide positive feedback and positive input around the different areas which you find useful. So please remember that the feedback is the most important piece for us as a Microsoft to know what you need, because we do exist for your benefit. Now let's actually get moving on to other topics as well. So quick recap on the latest news. I'm not going to spend too much time on here because we do have those cool topics to talk about around the intelligence intranet. Earlier today, we released the recordings of the Microsoft 365 PnP Virtual Conference, which was something which we executed on the 1st of September. And this was the first time we did a quick ad hoc, completely free virtual conference related on Microsoft 365 PnP topics. And this was really targeted to be more on, let's say, getting started level, not about the latest and greatest, which might come up within 6 months, rather something which you can actually take into use today and really benefit out of the things. And there's 18 videos or 17 videos, unless I'm completely mistaken, available right now in the YouTube channel. So if you go AKMS PnP Virtual Conference or the PnP Community YouTube channel, you'll find the YouTube videos from there. By the way, just for a note, Chris Kent's session was the most highest in the evaluation perspective. I think it scored something like 4.9 in the session. So thank you, Chris, for doing a good job on the list magic. And those who do know what Chris actually does with his warrior horses and list magic for Microsoft List and SharePoint, there is no doubt. Well, you probably won't be surprised that he actually did the highest score. On eval average, I think the average was 4.72, which is actually really high. So people were really happy about the conference itself. Now, what else do we actually want to talk about? Quick recap on the development side of the house or the extensibility side. I just want to do a quick kind of a recap on the platform side of the house. So what are we actually working on so that those who are doing investments on these areas are up to date on what's actually happening. So obviously, improvement, a lot of performance improvements in multiple areas of the platform. So making sure that the base is loading faster and many other things are working faster as well. And we'll provide additional guidance and samples related on this one. We're also working on the permission and auth changes, and this relates more on the SharePoint framework side of the house. Well, not necessarily only on there, but there's an options to actually disable app-only ACS tokens, and that it's on the old ACS registered SharePoint add-ins security option. And then we're looking into moving to MSAL.js or MSAL in the authentication side of the house. Super technical thing if you're not a developer, but good to know for those who are developers that we are actually adapting the latest capabilities. Now, a lot of investments on the SharePoint side is being absolutely put on the Teams improvement. So we are more and more getting aligned together with Teams. And on the SharePoint framework side of the house, it's more about store acquisitions and making that process more streamlined. It is not quite optimal at the moment. How can you find the latest and the most cool and the awesome SharePoint framework solutions from the store? So we're making that better. We will start supporting more complex solutions over there and more mobile support, which is a one big focus area for Microsoft during this fiscal year meaning July to July in Microsoft language. The mobile usage is growing heavily, and using Microsoft Teams to access the latest capabilities and solutions and their line of business applications. So they're using the Microsoft Teams clients for all of that stuff. So therefore, the mobile support is a really big focus area for us as well. And then we're looking into doing improvements on the third-party tool chain, so making sure that you have the latest and greatest on your tools as a developer. So you actually want to do investments on this area, and then improving the hosted workbench in the SharePoint Online, which you can use to develop extensibility for SharePoint and for Microsoft Teams. So quick update on those, not going to spend too much time on that one. Kind of a classical slide as well on the UserVoice on the SharePoint dev side or extensibility side. We've been actually releasing quite a lot of stuff here recently. So taxonomy APIs were released, the store for SharePoint framework was released. So gradually getting stuff more cleaned. The number one request here still needs more votes, just a kind of a, well, it doesn't necessarily need more votes, but more votes always count on the prioritization of the following steps. So right now, we're not actively working on this number one item, but it is definitely in the radar of the leadership that we need to look into that. And that is basically support overriding the list experiences in the modern SharePoint list and library, so which isn't currently supported in SharePoint Online in the same way as it was in the Classic. So if you're looking into doing that, or you would like to do that, please go and vote on that UserVoice. Other than that, I think we're under the 1,000 radar, which is still a lot of votes. And we're looking, obviously prioritizing these things, but it's looking much better than it actually looked 6 months ago or 1 year ago when we had multiple, more than 1,000 entries on this list. So we are delivering. And yes, it might take a while, but we are always focusing on these things. I can't promise us when the #1 issue here will be resolved, but sooner or later it will. Now, quick update also on our BMP Sharing is Caring initiative. So this is really cool stuff. It doesn't mean that you have to be an extensive developer or an architect or a technical person. This is really around the fact of that you can learn the basics of how would I contribute on the documentation if you find a typo, if you find something which you don't feel that is right in our official documentation in Microsoft. These trainings are helping you to actually get started by contributing and learning how to contribute on those things. So we have different level of sessions. So there's the community doc sessions, which is basically more around editing and contributing on the documentation. And then there's the using BMP SPFx samples, which is actually a really good one as well. So there's 3 upcoming sessions which are explaining that if you find a really cool existing sample, how would I actually use that? What does it mean that you're pulling that down from a GitHub, and what do you need to do to actually get it deployed to your tenant? And what does it actually mean when you do that? So really cool stuff as well. And then the first-time contributor sessions are really around contributing on the samples and contributing on other areas on the GitHub. But if you're looking into doing this, or you're interested in learning how that would be actually done, please go to the AKMS Sharing is Caring. Hugo Bernier and David Warner are leading this effort, and there's multiple other people helping behind the scenes obviously as well, but those are David and Hugo are certainly the leading duo on this particular thing. So really, really great stuff, and getting so good feedback from every single time it's being executed. If you're looking into also on staying up to date on what's happening within the Microsoft 365 level, we do actually also do this weekly catalog or weekly magazine, which is a podcast and a video blog where we talk about the latest articles. We always have a visitor in place. Well, typically we have a visitor in place, and we talk about the latest articles from Microsoft and from the community. So great way of staying up to date on what's actually happening within the Microsoft 365 level. Not just about the extensibility, by the way, but also the non-development topics in this case. Now, the September 2020 update is coming quite soon. I'm still working on the final blog post on this one, but we already have the contributors who have contributed within the last month. But there will be again a monthly summary, what has happened, what are the latest samples, what are the latest videos, articles, and all of that. And that's coming super, super soon in the official blog. But this is already the full list of contributors within the last month. So thank you everybody who've been actively involved in our open source efforts. I didn't count the overall number, but I needed to again reduce the font size. Now it's 8 pixels, so we get the full list of people who've been active from the community side, from a non-Microsoft community side of the house. So thank you for helping other people to adapt the right ways of doing extensibility or the right ways of using the Microsoft 365 if you contribute on our documentation side of the house. Also, we want to thank all of these companies who've been giving their employees the option to contribute in the open source efforts. So they're actually giving the option, well, they allow their employees to actually be active in these contributions and contribute on the open source projects, which will then help all of the other people in the community. So thank you for these companies for allowing that to happen. On the Microsoft side, this is the full list of Microsoft employees who contributed within the last month. That's growing as well, which is really cool. So we're getting a lot of internal attention on our efforts as well. So thank you for that one as well. Now, we are closing the demo time, but before we go there, like I warned, let's actually do a one together mode session or together mode picture. And how we do this is that if you enable the video, and I will actually put myself, and I will share my together mode on that screen. We should be able to actually do that. And so if you do together, enable your video. And I will put together mode here. We can actually see how many people are allowing their video to come. This is actually pretty cool. Also, if it is live on your screen, you can actually see what I'm broadcasting. Thank you, Mark, for waving your hands. Excellent. Still getting a few more. I was still getting people. Still getting. I think we're hitting the maximum gradually. I will take one picture right about now. I can see some masks there, so that's good. You never know. There's so many people in this audience, so it's good to wear a mask. I can see that. And another picture. Excellent. And one more. Let's go crazy. Ah! And there we go. And that's a good picture. Excellent. Thank you, everybody. So I will move back on the slides. So it's good to have the real faces behind of the names. So thank you for that one. And that doesn't take too long. I think it's actually kind of a fun thing to do. Now, let me go one more slide forward, and then I will give the stage for the main speakers and presenters of today, who are Mike and Matt. So topic was Intelligent Intranet Digital Experience and Solution Enabler Refresh. That's a lot of words. So what's happening, Mike and Matt, today? There's the slides.
Hi, all. Well, thank you, Vesa and the community for having us. As you all know, there's been a bunch of work that's been happening with the intelligent intranet space, especially with more and more work that we're doing with the Teams organization. And we've been also spending a bunch of time updating our digital assets. So what we've been learning from direct customer engagements is something that Matt and myself spend a bunch of time doing. And so Vesa put out the call for session topics, and we hopped on the opportunity to hopefully come in and share some of what we're doing to make sure there's visibility into that work, and then also that you all can leverage and hopefully give us feedback on what you're thinking of it. So with that, why don't we do some quick intros. I'm Mike. I work in our customer engineering team with folks like Bert Jensen and others, along with Matt, and we're really focused on how can we help enable yourselves as the community and our customers succeed from an adoption perspective. So with that, I'll hand it over to Matt to let him introduce himself and start walking you all through the content that we have today.
All right, thanks, Mike. Hi, everyone. Hopefully you're seeing my slides here. Please let me know if you're not. So yeah, I'm Matt Wolodarski. I'm a program manager on Mike's team. Mike's my manager, so please hold off on the difficult questions. Of course, I'm kidding. We welcome them. Yeah, as Mike was saying, I'm focused on helping our customers adopt OneDrive, SharePoint, and the intelligent intranet. So yeah, we're going to cover a few different resources that are available today that we think can be really helpful in terms of accelerating your adoption of the intelligent intranet. And it starts with this intelligent intranet digital experience that's on the left-hand side of the slide. That's what I'm going to focus on initially. And think of this as a virtual workshop, which can really guide yourself, your organization, or if you're a partner, it's something that you can use with your customers, hopefully, to help define your vision for an intelligent intranet, get alignment across the different stakeholders that are important to a successful intranet, and then, of course, design and implement, following up with adoption. So we'll be going through that in just a moment. The next two set of resources that you see on the slide are both what we would call solution accelerators. They're both available on lookbook.microsoft.com, which I'm assuming the majority of folks on this call are familiar with, but just in case, the lookbook.microsoft.com is a public site that you all can go to today and get inspired by some of the beautiful designs that our teams have put up there in terms of different site templates. But what makes it, I think, extra special is the fact that it's not only about getting inspired about what's possible with SharePoint, but also you can implement or provision the site templates that you see up on the site into your tenant environment and use that to show your colleagues what's possible. So really, really cool site, lots of great site templates. And we're going to be focusing on 2 solutions that are available up there. The new Employee Onboarding Hub, which by the name, you can guess what that is about, helping new employees onboard to an organization. And then finally, Microsoft 365 Learning Pathways, which is a Microsoft 365 training solution that you can implement in your tenant and use it to ready your end users for the different apps and services across Microsoft 365. So that's what we're going to be covering today. Let's dive into our first resource, the Intelligent Intranet Digital Experience. And I'm just going to set it up briefly, and then we'll actually take a look at the site, which you can find at aka.ms/intelligent-intranet. And I'll walk you through that, give you a bit of a demo of it. So the reason that we invested in pulling this resource together is, as many of you know, over the last few years, the team has been very focused on making it easier than ever to build an intranet on SharePoint. It's a process that many organizations need to go through. Oftentimes, you need to build a business case to get investment into your intelligent intranet. You need to work on a vision, bring a disparate set of stakeholders together and get them all aligned on that same vision. And then it's not just about implementing the intranet, but you also have to get people in the organization using it and using it in an engaged way where they're contributing their voice and adding to the experience for all employees. So let's take a look at the site itself. And just as I pull it up here, what you'll find, this is the homepage, is we've provided this framework. Obviously, there's the 4 steps that you can see on the screen, and it's really intended to take customers through a journey of designing and building their intranet. And within each of these different sections, there's a number of, or a variety of content experiences, and we did that very purposely. Obviously, we know people are working remotely and are just inundated with meetings and virtual conferences and that sort of thing. So we really wanted to make it super engaging. You'll find customer interviews, you'll find demos, webinars, templates, frameworks, animation for all you animation fans out there. So lots of really rich content, and you'll see that as we go through. So we're going to start off our journey with the Explore section, which is all about immersing yourself and your colleagues in the art of the possible. Of course, within the intelligent intranet space, but that gives us a lot of room to play and be creative. But from an Explore perspective, one of the best sources of inspiration, of course, is the SharePoint Lookbook, which I mentioned just a moment ago. There you'll find all sorts of different types of sites, a landing page environment, different departmental portals, solutions. We've highlighted a few of those here on the site. So one of them being this crisis communication site template, which is a great resource for leaders and communicators to share important news and processes to keep everyone in the organization up to date and aligned on how to move through a crisis. There's also a digital workspace, company news site, leadership connection. So lots of different types of sites. Hopefully that will act as a good inspiration of some different ways in which you can use SharePoint, but also give you a excellent head start rather than starting from scratch and staring at a blank page. You've got something that you can take and make your own. All right, so the next section here is a web series that we developed. So we've got an episode per pillar. Right now we're in that Explore pillar. So this particular episode is all about getting stakeholders excited about what's possible, having stakeholders think about their business priorities. And throughout the series, there's a number of Microsoft subject matter experts that have been involved and share their perspectives. But what I think is the most compelling aspect of this web series is we bring in an actual customer who shares their experiences, both the and the bad and the ugly, and provide some really practical tips and best practices. And so the customer is Standard Bank. They're Africa's largest bank, and we've got the two stakeholders, Ian and Janine, who led the bank through their intranet journey and offer some great insight throughout the web series. And then we top it off here in this section with a series of demos. Debjani Mitra, our program manager at Microsoft, highlights some of the key capabilities within SharePoint that will be most useful for your intranet. So that's explore, getting started, getting inspired. Then we move on to align, and this is where you really want to align with your stakeholders on a common vision of what your intranet and digital workspace is going to look like. So of course we've got our ongoing web series here, but if we zero in to this section of the page, when we talk about getting stakeholder alignment, there's three key steps towards that we think are really important. And you may have seen different versions of this, but we believe it starts with understanding your stakeholder goals, whether that's HR, sales, marketing, common stakeholders for an intranet, of course. And you can see with the goals that are filling in here on the screen, it's at the business level altitude. So improving new employee onboarding experience, increasing awareness of authoritative news. That's not about the technology. That's really about helping our stakeholders accomplish their goals with the technology. And again, that's where we believe it's critical to start the journey. And then of course, with that insight to the goals of the business, then you can start to brainstorm with those same stakeholders on different scenarios. And then finally, once you've identified your scenarios, it's time to prioritize those scenarios. So this is a cool animation that at a high level, I think takes you through the process. But as part of this site, the download here, this will be a series of templates that you can use and actually apply this approach within your own organization. So let me just very quickly highlight some of the templates that you'll find, starting off with that first step, understanding across the different stakeholder groups, what their priorities are, what their challenges are. Really important, obviously, to understand this from your business stakeholder perspective. So this is a way of having those conversations, capturing that information. And then the last one I'll just show you here is the template that we offer to help you create your own scenario. So we've got a framework here, 4 pillars to that framework. We like 4-pillar frameworks, I suppose. Many different versions of this, but at the end of the day, it's really about understanding how is the technology going to be used to accomplish the goal that a particular group or role within the organization has. So check out those templates. Really encourage you to use those as part of your own intranet journey. All right, we're halfway through the journey. We're moving on to the implement section. We hear from Standard Bank on how they went about designing and implementing their intranet on SharePoint. You'll find throughout each of the episodes, I provide a bit of an overview of the step and the tools and templates that we provided. So in the previous phase, for example, I walked through in more detail how to identify priorities, define your scenarios, do the prioritization, and similarly, I'll walk through the design phase. But what we're really talking about in this implement phase is how do I go from the business priority to the scenario to finally the solution? And that's what we're focused on here, is designing that solution. But I did want to show you the traceability that each of these solutions as part of your digital workplace, your intelligent intranet, has back to the business priority. Really, really important in terms of being able to show the value and return the organization is making on their intelligent intranet. So I did want to show you the template that you'll find here. Of course, you can just download that yourself, but I've got that opened up here. So again, this is just providing a framework for you to consider and use, where at a solution level, we're defining the objectives, the metrics, personas. We've got some sample slides here on how you can do that. Here's an example for increasing employee engagement. You can see we've mapped out KPI measures, where we're going to get the data source for that, the KPI formula. So pretty extensive. It may, in some cases, be overkill, but I think taking it at this level and in this quantifiable manner, I think can go a long way in improving the value. And then we've just got some other templates here that can help you go from the high-level solution experience, what are the different components of that within SharePoint and across Microsoft 365, of course. Okay, so on the home stretch, we've gone through implement. Oh, one last thing here. As you scroll down, there's a how-to guidance section. So everything you'll need to know about doing information architecture, sharing and permissions, branding and theming. So take a look through that as well. The last phase here is engage. This is all about driving adoption and end user engagement. And we've got some templates here, an adoption playbook, a project plan, even a sample training plan for SharePoint that you can use as you roll out your intranet and get your users engaged with that intranet. All right, well, I hope that was useful and hope this is a site that you can return to many, many times, because it obviously is a lot to consume in one sitting. And if you're just starting your own journey, or maybe you're in the align phase, jump right in and maybe use it to guide you through your process and use some of the resources that are available and as they may fit the process that you're going through yourself. So I'm just going to return now to PowerPoint for a moment. Don't worry, I won't spend too much time here, but I did want to intro the next resource. This is the second of the three that we're going to be showing you today, and that's the new employee onboarding hub. I'll show you where you can find it, but it starts with the lookbook. But basically, what the new employee onboarding hub is a series of SharePoint templates that are intended to help new employees onboard successfully. So why did we build the new employee onboarding hub? There's a lot of different site templates that we could build. We've got a lot of them already up today on Lookbook. We did find that this is one of the most popular scenarios or use cases. We did some surveying of customers and this rated very, very highly. So that was obviously a big motivation for us investing in this area, but it turns out that there's a big opportunity in terms of improving new employee onboarding. There's, I think, two sort of overall drivers of that. One of them is traditionally new employee onboarding from a process standpoint has been very challenging. You may have experienced this yourself, onboarding to the organization you might be working with today, or if you're onboarding people to your organization. There's in fact been some third-party surveying done on this, and I believe the stat was only 12% of new hires thought the onboarding process was helpful or successful. So lots of room for improvement. That's always been there, I would say, but certainly with the pandemic and people having to work remotely, for many organizations, hiring has not stopped. In the case of services, essentially, in fact, it's accelerated. But there isn't a place to go physically to onboard those new employees. So having a digital onboarding experience can be really powerful. And you can see some of the benefits here for organizations that do onboarding correctly. It can help with new hire performance and time to productivity. It can help with reducing new employee churn. A third of new employees, when they start an organization, within the first couple months, they're looking for another job. It can be overwhelming, as we all know. If for me, I have to think back 12 years ago, but I can remember it being an overwhelming experience. So by onboarding, again, new employees correctly, that can go a long way in making them feel like they belong and wanting to stick around and reducing that churn. All right, so now you know why we built it and what some of the opportunities are for investing yourself in this area. Let's actually take a look at what the new employee onboarding hub provides. I promised I would go to Lookbook, so let me start there. So we're just going to go to lookbook.microsoft.com. Lots of different types of SharePoint site templates. I'm going to jump ahead to the solution section. This is where you'll find the new employee onboarding hub. Hopefully folks on the call have played around with the lookbook. Gives you some information about the site features that are used, the web parts, and then you can go ahead and add to your tenant for where you want to install that. And the forms and the process will sort of take it from there. It's a very straightforward process, provided that you have, of course, global admin rights or you're the tenant admin. I use those interchangeably. Just one last thing to point out, just so folks know it's here. We do have extensive documentation on how to customize, how to provision, of course, but also how to customize the sites. And the other thing to point out here is that there's 3 site types that get included as part of the hub. That's why we call it a hub, not to be confused with SharePoint hubs. We went through a marketing and brand discussion with our marketing team members and landed on that being the best name, despite there being obviously some overlap. But there is a pre-onboarding site for hires who have officially signed the paperwork but haven't yet joined. They haven't walked in the virtual door. Really powerful to begin onboarding at that stage. There's some documented benefits that can come with that. Turns out onboarding is a team sport. So we've included a corporate onboarding site, which I'll show you. I'm going to show you all 3 of these. And then also departments need to onboard employees in parallel with the corporate HR team, because you're not just joining an organization, you're joining a department and a team. So that's where you'll find the sites. And once you install it, what I'm going to be demoing here is what you'll get. So not only is it the design, the look and feel, the navigation, the information architecture, but we have real content that can be used just as an example, or in some cases, we think it can be used and quickly customized so that you don't have to write some of this copy from scratch. And in fact, we had one of our talented writers develop the content that you see on the site. So let's go through some key highlights of the pre-onboarding site. I'll just scroll through the homepage and then we can dive in. So obviously, reaffirming new employees that they made a good choice is what pre-onboarding and onboarding for that matter is all about, because sometimes people have second thoughts, and making sure people know the values of the organization, that you've got great benefits, that you'll be able to meet some great people. That goes a long way in reaffirming the new hire that they've made a good choice. If we go into the welcome section, here I can watch a video from our CEO welcoming me to the company. I can learn more about the Contoso in this case, and here we go into the values of the organization, and you'll notice the designs I think are really quite striking, very beautiful pages. One of our lead designers, Katie Swanson, worked on this and did a wonderful job. And then you can dive into this page here, prepare for your first day, which I think is really important for new hires. They'll have lots of questions. They need their expectations set properly. Now, in today's day and age, you can see that the designs for this were done before COVID. So it might be a little bit different for at least the next few months. But it's a good way for new hires to get prepared for that first day. That's pre-boarding. I promised that there were site types. So the next one is corporate onboarding. So this is once I've actually officially joined, I'm entering the organization, I've got the right credentials, because with this pre-boarding site, we do use external guest access within SharePoint to restrict restart hires to be able to only access the site. We don't want them to have access, of course, to our systems and confidential information because they haven't yet officially started. Okay, so I've just started my first day. I'm going to learn about the organization, and this is a great way to orientate yourself. I can learn about the story of the company. I can meet the leadership team. And so if you're building your own new hire site using these site templates, you could just go in and swap in the right pictures, the right names, and this gives you a good sort of design for presenting your leadership team. And that's how we hope and believe we're really accelerating your implementation of a solution like this, rather than having to start from scratch. You've got some really good IP to help get you started. Obviously, building connections, really important for a new hire, that they start building their network. So lots of different ways to do that. People care about their paycheck a lot. We didn't need to research that to know that was really important. So lots of information about that. Virtual events are now a good way to onboard. They've always been, I think, but especially important. So that's a good way to profile them. We've brought in the company's Twitter. This is, again, a way to reaffirm that the new hire made a good decision. Here's all the activities that we have in our communities with our customers and partners. And then, of course, the new hire Yammer community using the new Yammer web part. We've just embedded that into the corporate onboarding page, so I don't have to switch context as a new hire. If I want to learn from my cohort, some of my other new hire colleagues, what some of the burning questions are, and then ask my own questions here and hear from other team members and HR. Okay, so that's the home page. We're going to just take a look at one of the central components, I believe, of this site experience, and that is the onboarding checklist. Met with a lot of customers, particularly the HR professionals within those organizations, to understand some of the key pain points. And I heard pretty consistently that the way onboarding is done and the experience for the new hire can be radically different depending upon what department, what team, and what manager I have. I've heard horror stories where, for some people, they had a manager who unfortunately either didn't know or wasn't that interested in onboarding, and that new hire had a very bad experience versus somebody coming onto the same organization having a wonderful onboarding experience. So consistency is a real challenge. And so we've defined as a starting point, again, this onboarding journey. We call it the new hire checklist. So this is using Microsoft lists and basically an outline of the different tasks that new hires should be doing on day 1, day 2, day 3, week 2, week 3. We, in fact, go out 3 months. It obviously gets a little bit less cumbersome in terms of the number of activities. But the thing about onboarding is it's definitely not a 2-day process. I've read stats where it takes on average 8 months for a new hire to get up to speed. Maybe that's too long for a lot of organizations, so we settled on 3 months. But you can easily edit this SharePoint list, add, edit, delete what works for you, and this can be a checklist that all new hires use so that they're going through the same journey. And so I'll just scroll to show you some of the other columns here. We point to what the resource is, and then, of course, URL. Okay, so that's the onboarding journey. Just to show you a couple other things we've got in our story section here. So again, this can be a nice template for you to write the story for your organization. Different office locations can be highlighted. I think this is a great template page again, because a lot of organizations have different locations that they'll want to highlight. Also a place for new hires to go and review frequently asked questions and see some of the responses. So these are actual questions that we all know new hires will have when they get started. So you'll just need to, of course, customize the answer, but it's a good laundry list of commonly asked questions. The one last page I want to show you this, and that's because I think that's just a really nicely designed page, is the resource group. So lots of organizations obviously have different employee groups, different resource groups, and this is a good way to profile those to entice people to join the ones that are what they're looking for. A really nicely designed page. Kudos to Katie on that. All right, so the next and last set of sites I'm going to show you here are the departmental sites. So corporate onboarding can only go so far in terms of indoctrinating the new hire in the culture, the company values, the processes that everyone does at a corporate level. The department needs to pick up the baton and help welcome and orientate the new hire into their department. And so we've got a departmental onboarding template. This one is for engineering. We've actually built two just to give you some different flavors. The other one is sales. This one is connected to the corporate onboarding site as an associated site. So the corporate onboarding site is a hub site. So you can see the global navigation or the hub navigation that I'll always have as I navigate through these different departmental sites. But then I get the local site nav, and I can learn about, again, the leadership, the organization, what are the different teams within the department, links to their sites, or if they've got a Teams channel. So lots of things that you can do with this, obviously, and hopefully this gives you a nice head start in planning and implementing your own new hire set of sites. Okay, so that's the new employee onboarding hub. I'm just going to switch over back to the slide deck to talk about the last resource, and that is Microsoft 365 Learning Pathways. So for those of you that are not familiar with Microsoft 365 Learning Pathways, it's a website, again, up on Lookbook that you can go to and install in your tenant environment and configure and customize both the site and the playlist. There's a series of Office 365 or Microsoft 365 training playlists, and help your end users learn and get ready to use Office 365. It covers the suite from SharePoint, OneDrive to Teams to accessibility, all sorts of different playlists, even one now for remote work. Obviously, that is bringing more and more users to Microsoft 365, so that means more users to train. So if you haven't looked at this site yet, I really encourage you to take a look at it, because we all know how important training and readiness is for end users to be able to successfully adopt Microsoft 365. So let's just take a look. I'm not going to, in the interest of time, be able to go into a demo like I did with the other resources, but just to give you a high level of the site, and also touch on our recent release. For those of you that haven't installed, we did release a new version not too long ago. But in terms of learning pathways and why this is a useful site or a useful training solution to help train your end users on the different apps and services of Office 365, well, number one is it's always up-to-date content. So we're using a web part to stream in content from docs.microsoft.com, and sorry, the learning site as well. Just escapes me the URL, but it's where we house all our end user training, where all that training content gets updated when a new feature gets released. So we're making sure that the training content within your instance of learning pathways is always up to date. You can also very easily customize the content. So if you've implemented some of the different apps and services within Office 365 a little bit differently than the out-of-the-box configuration, then you can add your own assets to a playlist. You can create your own playlist from scratch if you want to promote certain scenarios. And you can also show or hide different technologies or different playlists if you haven't implemented, for example, one of the tools within Office 365 to not confuse your end users, which we heard from a lot of our customers was happening when they were sending their end users to the public sites of training content. And you can make sure that your training content within Learning Pathways reflects your environment. And just the breadth of training content, and we're always adding new content, new playlists, I think is pretty extensive. So you'll find that it's quite useful. We did, as I mentioned, do a new release version. We're now up to version 4.1. It was 4.0 that brought in multilingual support. That was the #1 request that we had from customers. We support now 9 languages. As well, there's a getting started app template, which basically brings Learning Pathways into Microsoft Teams, which can be great for organizations that are adopting or have adopted Microsoft Teams and really want that to be kind of the main place for end users to get their work done. Those are the 3 resources, obviously just concluding there on Learning Pathways. If you are a partner on this call, there's different programs that we have to get involved and so that you can help your customers adopt some of these different solutions. And I'm going to hand it over to my manager, Mike, who will walk you through that.
Okay, cool. Thank you, Matt. So this is a community call. And so we've intentionally been leaning in and engaging from an open source platform on these solutions and then wrapping them as we see as great opportunities to engage and enable our collective customers together. So with Learning Pathways explicitly, we've started a partner early adopter program. And I'm not going to drain the whole slide, but the keys here are that it's available for partners and MVPs, such as yourselves in the community. It's a way to engage a little closer with the V team that we have going on enablement of the solution. We hit on monthly onboarding topics. We try to provide a roadmap to this group before we show up at conferences and surprise everybody in the audience with what's coming. And then, we release features. So for example, Learning Pathways, we've just enabled multilingual support for 8 additional languages. This is an opportunity if you've made an investment on this solution to actually get that feature before it rolls out broader. So similar to kind of private preview programs, but also more attuned to the community because we want to get feedback on what is and isn't working on our partners or MVP's investment on top of these solutions. And so what we're really trying to do too is enable a opportunity to get visibility into any offers that you may have created on top of these solutions. So we've started to actually have a self-nomination form for the community. If you've created, for example, a Learning Pathways explicit offering that's built on top of the platform, then we want to recognize that. We want to have a way that our customers can go and actually discover that you have solutions along those lines in market. And so we're working on enabling more and more of these types of programs so that we recognize the kind of better together of Microsoft and our partners to help enable our customers. And so you're going to see more of that. And I just wanted to make another call to action. You'd be surprised that, we feel like we broadcast this, but a lot of folks might not know about these programs. And so really do ask out to us, and there'll be a ability to do so in the coming slide if you want to get engaged with these programs. But we think it's a really great way to recognize the work and investment that's gone on into some of these solutions. And then finally, that was specific for Learning Pathways, but if you look at the lookbook solutions, there's quite a few. And for example, take the new employee onboarding example that Matt just showed, a partner early adopter program around that. And so we are exploring how to kind of genericize this platform so that we can do this for the broader solution base. And so if you would be interested in that, we're actually looking through the funding and costing of that. Fill out the AKMS form for us. Let us know who you are. Give us some comments on that, or hit us up on the email address that I put at the bottom of the screen. We think there's a lot of value from a community enablement perspective there, and so this is another way for you as a community to provide us that input back over on the Microsoft side. And so with that, I believe we are wrapped up, Vesa.
Excellent. Thank you, Mike and Matt. Really, really great stuff. And just a reminder, everybody, the tech what you're seeing being used with the Learning Pathways and Neo is actually open source. The service called lookbook.microsoft.com is actually open source. Many of these templates are actually open source. So if you see a cool looking template and you would like to use that and slightly adjust that for your customer, you actually can. You can actually use also PowerShell to provision those templates if that is the preferred option on this overall scenario, if you're looking to extend on these things. So really, really cool stuff. Let me share my screen again. And thank you, Matt and Mike, on that one. Timing is pretty excellent, actually. So we just have the 2 minutes to close up on today, but thank you, Mike and Matt, one more time. Great coverage on what's available, and please keep on giving us the feedback. What's available? What do you want? What's missing? And there was good discussions already in the chat window. If something is missing, you need more assets, reusable things, components, whatever. Let us know, because that's the easiest way we can actually address your question or the gap within the guidance. Now, quick recap on today's video and the setup. So the recording will be available in the Microsoft 365 SharePoint Community YouTube channel within 24 hours. And please subscribe on that one. Subscribe on the Microsoft 365 Developer YouTube channel as well. Us on Twitter, either using Microsoft 365 Dev or the Microsoft 365 BMP are the accounts. The next SharePoint Framework call, which is more technical call related on SharePoint Framework thing, happens this week on September 10th at 7 a.m. Pacific time. The next Microsoft 365 general call happens on September 17th. And the next monthly call, like said when we started today, which are not as technical as detailed on the extensibility, is happening on October 13th. But in October, we actually are deep diving on the performance APIs and improvements, and also on the latest on SPFx. So it will be a technical call for that one as well. So extensibility will be the topic. You will always get the agenda in social media for the calls, so you can actually decide, do you want to jump in or not? Now, if you're looking into other areas in the extensibility or the platform side of the Microsoft 365, please check on all of these calls. So there's a lot of stuff happening. Most of these calls are happening once a month. You do not have to be in all of those calls. You can always check the recordings from the YouTube channels if you prefer to do so. But if you have questions for the people who are behind of these capabilities, like adaptive cards or Microsoft Graph or identity platforms, these calls are a brilliant location and brilliant way to get connected and get that connection, and you get your question actually answered on the chat window, or if there's a time for Q&A in the call. In the SharePoint calls, we try to do a Q&A actually as a pre-call setup. So we're trying to join 10 to 15 minutes before the call, because we're always running out of time because of the awesome content and discussions what we're having. But if you're looking into getting access on any of these, go to AKMS M365 Dev calls, and you can download the invites for all of those calls as well. But that's all what we're going to do today. Thank you, Mike and Matt, one more time. Really great stuff, great assets, awesome stuff, and more to come. Actually, there's so much cool stuff going to be announced in Ignite in many of these areas. So please subscribe on the Ignite and register to the Ignite as well. Like I said, recording in 24 hours in YouTube. So thank you, everybody. Thank you for joining. Thank you for your input. Thank you for allowing to the together mode. That was really cool as well. We'll push out that to social media within 30 minutes or so, whenever the time is right. But thank you, everybody. We'll be definitely in touch. Bye-bye.
Thanks, Vesa.